Hey guys, PJ back with Exotic Car Hacks, and today we are going to be answering the ultimate question. Why has the car market stopped? Why is it in a gridlock? And why is every other giant pussy talking about the collapse of the car market when they don't even understand their left nut from their right one? So why is the market in a gridlock? And what's really happening, right? Something to really understand that's happening in the market right now is two key things are happening. It's called replacement cost versus buy cost. You may notice that when you call a dealer and you want to buy a car, right, their number does not change, meaning they're like, I have very limited number money, I'm not gonna lower it that much, where can you find the car that much, blah, blah, blah. So this is happening for two key reasons. One, dealers have paid a lot of money over the last 90 days because the market just recently changed. They paid a lot of money for certain cars and some dealers can't afford to take the losses. So that's just a reality that's happening for some people. But there's also another reality is that dealers don't necessarily need to discount because they're not able to literally replace the good they're getting rid of. So what you'll notice is, for example, you'll notice a dealer asking, for example, 200K over on a 765 LT, right? And you will say, well, cool, like that seems to be high, that's over a sticker, that dealer probably didn't pay any. So, I'm gonna hit him with like 50 over and they should just sell me that car. And the dealer basically tells you to go piss off because you're not offering 200K over. So you might be wondering, well, what's happening? I thought we were in recession. I thought I was gonna get a good deal. But there's a reality you need to still conform to, is that even if this dealer sold you the car for 50K over, he couldn't necessarily replace this car for anything less than 200K over. So while they have their buy cost that is significantly lower because they don't want to get trapped into a car at a very high dollar because they know the market could change, they're also factoring in and selling it at what they call replacement cost. This is something that's very dominant in the real estate market right now. If you actually pay attention to the real estate market, you'll notice that specifically the real estate market, you'll notice houses that would appraise at 4 million listing for 8 million. And you might be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. There's nothing that backs up that appraisal. But the reality is it doesn't need to, because the way owners are basically pricing out their homes, they're saying, well, if I sell my home for 8, I have to pay 10 to get the next one. So it doesn't make sense for me to sell it for less than 4 because I can't even replace my own home for less than 4. So it wouldn't make sense for me to sell it at appraised value. This is basic economics, right? So it's like market supply and demand. This only works, this ideology only works that markets are gonna crash and tumble to nothing, assuming that there's a lot of 765 LTs coming on the market, so that this 200K number has to become very competitive and go down. But when not a lot of new 765 LTs come on the market, there's really no need to continuously lower this number, because by a dealer selling his 765 LT, he's not able to replace it because, one, these are incredibly limited, have all been sold out, and there is no new McLaren product for quite some time to compete with this. So dealers know they have a 2-year gap to basically ride this wave. And that is a very important concept in the market we're in today. So if you're finding yourself in a position where you're negotiating a car and the dealer isn't moving and that doesn't make sense to you, it's because they're using basically this guideline here to make a decision. So what has crashed and what is not crashing? This stuff is slightly softening. It's not crashing. SVJ slightly softening, not crashing. Ultimates slightly softening, not crashing. Why? Because they're like almost double what MSRP is. And that's too much, but that number is coming down because liquidity has left the market, but it's not crashing. What is crashing are gonna be cars that are available in massive numbers. For example, I've said time and time again, G63s are dangerous cars. I've said time and time again, Ursas are dangerous cars. I've said time and time again that buying a 911 Turbo S, like a 992, is a very dangerous proposition. And I've said this because continuously I've reminded you that in a normal market, even if you take a regular normal market, and you said that everything is overinflated because of the COVID markets in 2020, I would still argue that before 2020, assuming pricing never comes back because of the price of money has changed, they printed a lot of money, all this blah, 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 blah. There's one key thing that is going to be a fact. And the fact is, pre-COVID, you didn't need to order a 911 Turbo S. You could just walk in and buy one. Pre-COVID, you didn't need to order a GT3. You could just walk in and buy one. Post-COVID, while pricing may still go up, that reality is still there. That production numbers on Porsche Turbo S's and GT3s are significantly higher than very rare cars like a GT2 RS. And so there's a lot more stability in rarer, hard to get exotics than there is in very average of the mill, even if they're quality product, highly produced exotics. Like you may have paid a lot more money for an S580 or some kind of basic Mercedes product because there was no supply. But that does not mean that you will continue to do that in a time where liquidity has left the market. Because if the average person can now no longer afford a car based on the lending guidelines that have pulled back, thanks to the Fed over the last 6 months, lending has become a lot tighter on the car market. One thing that is for sure is that while that lending has taken the liquidity of what we consider basically the middle class to the lower income off the plate, the higher income in the game is still buying stuff, but it's being and going after the stuff that hasn't moved. So a friend of mine said something which I'm gonna try to explain to you in a much easier way to understand. A friend of mine said something like, a market is what someone is willing to pay for a product, right? So if someone says, what is the market on a car? It's usually based on what is this, that someone's willingness to write a check. And I've always argued the same thing, except for one key thing. That does not apply to ultra rare and hard to get goods. Why not? Because in a regular market, a market is the baseline of what someone is capable of paying for a good. Very true. But that is assuming that someone else on the other side is accepting that offer. Meaning if you go to Mercedes and make an offer for 20K over on a G63 and the guy says no, there may be a dealer somewhere in the country willing to make that offer. Once that offer and deal takes its place, a real transaction takes place, which is why transactions like that are happening every minute, every hour. However, once you start to take a look at a much stronger and much more limited supply chain, such as maybe a Porsche 918 or an SVJ, or even, for example, something as crazy as a Pagani, maybe there's one or two on the market at any given time. And someone might make a bid for 1.6 million for a car where the buyer wanted $2 million. Well, as long as the buyer doesn't accept the good, the transaction doesn't get recorded. And while someone is willing to get a steal at 1.5, it doesn't mean that a transaction took place and that is now the value of the good because someone was only willing to offer 1.5. On the contrary, actually, because no transaction took place, the last recorded transaction still holds weight. So until we start seeing, just no different than a foreclosure in your neighborhood, someone in your neighborhood may have a foreclosure, but once that foreclosure is off the market, other homes in the neighborhood don't have to sell at that price now. While it can pull down the volume a little bit, it does not set a new indicator and on one basis alone. The real estate in that area is significantly more limited, and therefore, since there aren't 17 foreclosures and 100 homes for sale, that ideology of just whatever someone's willing to pay is what it's worth doesn't apply unless a transaction takes place. So this is why the entire market is gridlocked. You have people looking for deals on cars that are extreme and impossible to get, and you have people that hold these cars not able to get the replacement cost of these cars, so there is no deal. If there's no transaction, then there's no data. If there's no data, then there are no trades. If there are no trades, there are no margins. And that is why the car market has significantly slowed down. This was what the Feds intended to do. So contrary to what many YouTubers want to talk about out of their astronaut, the car market itself has not collapsed. There has been a significant amount of inflation that has left the market on the basis that liquidity has left with it. You could blame that on Bitcoin, you could blame that on stock market crash, you could blame that on the fact that people are afraid. Whatever you want to call it, there is certainly a lot of liquidity that has left the market. That has not collapsed values. There are good pocket opportunities, if you've been following me on Exotic Car Hacks, where I've taught my students how to buy the best cars at the best prices. You may have seen recently, I have bought yet another SF90, a beautiful red one, and I paid nowhere near what I would have paid 2 years ago on another one, should I have wanted to buy one that wasn't spec'd at MSRP. Now, this is something you have to understand. The markets have certainly changed, but they haven't collapsed. And while they've softened for certain cars, they've still held pretty strong for others. So that said, make sure you get educated and make sure you don't just generalize your knowledge of the markets by just having a one-size-fits-all approach or you're gonna lose quite a lot of money hacking and, more importantly, collecting the right cars. If you wanna learn more about this, of course, don't forget to click the link in the training and learn through my 1-hour free training how to become a car hacker and ultimately live the car that you've always wanted to own and be with, rather than just dream about the car, right? Live it, don't dream it, and more importantly, don't take 10 years to earn it. Take 90 days and make it a reality by clicking the link in the description. Of course, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and tell me what you think. You think the market has collapsed or has it softened? Love to hear your comments, and I'll catch you in the next video for Exotic Car Hacks.